Today is Monday, January 18th. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day for all those in the U.S. For everyone else, happy Monday. Now checking in on yesterday, January 17th, and one of the things that I noticed this weekend was I haven't been doing my daily reading quotes like I did last year. Completely forgot about them, so I'm going to pick those up again this week. So today's daily reading quote comes from 2016 and the amazing memoir I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. If you haven't read that book yet, you have to. It's completely life-changing. One of the best memoirs I've ever read. And the quote says, "Only his voice gave it something new." And that just, if you read the rest of the memoir, you totally get that quote. That quote just sank with me. So now checking in on Promised Land by Barack Obama. So the chapter on Obama traveling to the G20 summit and meeting with all the different world leaders. This really gives a look into the way that Obama was and is treated throughout the world. Certain leaders relied on him to communicate with leaders like the Iranian president and other people of color, because he's black and his middle name is Hussein. They thought he could relate to them more than they could, meaning mostly that they were white. And he writes about the whole birthism movement, that there were so many people in his country, the US, that questioned his citizenship and automatically assumed and even made jokes that he was Muslim because of his name and his skin color. And he allows us, his readers, to see into those moments. And that, I think, is so important, especially for a political memoir like Obama's is. I really appreciated those moments. And I also appreciated that while he was traveling the world for all these important meetings and summits and conferences, he always kept the town hall meetings with the young kids, young kids in their early 20s, and the people that essentially would be his young voters if he was in that country. No matter what country he was in, he stayed true to who he was, and he kept these town hall meetings with the younger kids. And that's really important, because that shows who he is and that he stuck to his values no matter where in the world he was. Now on to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So I think I've hit that point of no return, the point where I can't and don't want to stop reading. I just want to keep reading, and I apologize to all the other books that I'm reading right now, because y'all are going to take the back seat to Addie now. Where I've left off, Addie has now told Henry the real truth about the curse and everything. The fact that no one can remember her real life story, why she did this deal, and he believes her and says that he made a deal also. And that's where I've left it. I don't know what kind of deal he made or anything about that or how they move forward from here, but that's where I've left it, and I can't wait to keep reading. But first, I pulled out a few quotes from my readings from yesterday and this morning. The first quote talks about a man from Addie's past, one of the men that she's met while being cursed. It says, "Remy Laurent is laughter bottled into skin. It spills out of him at every turn." And this quote reminds me of when people say, like, this person is bubbly. A lot of people say that about me when they meet me in person, and I never really understood it, but this quote kind of gave me that sense. And so now I think I'm starting to finally understand what people mean when they say that person is bubbly. They have a bubbly personality. And then the next quote says, "Would you rather feel nothing or everything?" And the weight of this question that Addie asked Henry is so important in the moment in the story, and I think where the story is turning to. And I can't wait to see essentially what the answer is to this. And then the last quote I have pulled out is, "But this is how you walk to the end of the world. This is how you live forever." And that quote just basically hit me in the face. I couldn't ignore that quote, so I had to pull it out and I had to tell you all. And that's my chicken for now. So now, like I said, I'm gonna go back to Addie LaRue, and we'll see how much of this I can get in. I would love to finish it today, but probably not today because I'm only halfway through. but you're going to be hearing a lot more from me on Addie LaRue. And I'm hoping, because I'm so close to the end for both Addie and A Promised Land, that we'll have at least two books finished this week. So my fingers are crossed. That's it for now, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, Kate from LoveStory here, checking in on January 18th, checking in about yesterday, January 18th. Yesterday's daily reading quote comes from the essay at 65, and I found this in the Best American Essays from 2014. I read it in 2016, if that's not confusing at all. And the quote says, "But it's not easy to judge success or failure when these days the reference class itself is collapsing." And that just really resonated with me. Now, onto our check-in. So yesterday, I read just one book all day long because I was hooked. I was addicted. I had to finish it. And that is, as you can see, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I finished it last night, stayed up way past my bedtime. And so there's a lot to check in here, so bear with me. A quote that I pulled out: "No matter how small or how big, it feels like his heart is breaking again inside his chest." And that's talking about Henry here. Now, we learned that Henry feels everything, and I could relate to this so much. This description resonates so much with me. So Henry feels everything, and everything just feels like a heartbreak to him. And at his most desperate moment, he made a deal with luck, and that he said he just wanted to be enough for people and to be loved for a lifetime. And luck said, okay, that's a deal. And we learned that basically when people look at Henry, they see exactly what they want to see, no matter what it is. It's different for everyone, and that's the deal that luck and Henry made together. Another quote I pulled out: "The held breath silence of someone hiding from themselves." And that was just, you know, that kind of silence, that kind of, you don't even want to admit who you are to yourself. Another quote, there's a whole bunch of quotes because this writing is just so beautiful, so emotional. "History is something you look back on, not something you really feel at the time. In the moment, you're just living." And this is a quote that Addie says to Henry when Henry's asking her about her life experiences. She's told him the truth about herself, and he's asking her about everything that she's gone through, and she's like, you know, this was all history now, but at the time, you're just living through it. You're just trying to survive. And that really resonated with me because, especially right now, a lot of people say we're living in history. We're going through historic moments of this country, and in the moment, you're just trying to live day to day. You're not thinking about what history has in store for it, what history will say about it. And then another quote: "She moves among the books as if they're friends." And you know, I always gotta pull out quotes about books because I love books so much, and bookstores and libraries, and this quote is me right here. Books have always been the friends that I could count on throughout my whole life. So I definitely was able to relate to this quote. On with more of this story. So we learned that Addie's wooden ring and Henry's watch are kind of reminders of their deals that they made with luck, a representation of their souls, basically. And we see and hear about others who made deals with luck. Aside from Henry and Addie, we see Shakespeare and Beethoven and the Wagner performers that did as Tristan and Isolde. And we learn a heartbreaking moment. Henry's deal was actually not for a lifetime, but for a year, 1 year. And at this point, he only has 1 month left with Addie and in his life. Addie tries to convince Luck to change it. Luck tells Addie that it wasn't a coincidence that she and Henry found each other. He made it that way because they gave each other what they needed the most. And then at the very last second, the night of Henry's last day, Addie sneaks out and tells Luck that if he allows Henry to live and remember her, she will be his, Luck's, forever. And Luck loves Addie so much and agrees to this. But Addie doesn't tell Henry until it's too late. So then we assume Addie goes with Luck. Henry goes on to publish his journals of Addie's life stories that she told him all year round that he wrote down, so that there would be someone else to remember her by, and not just Henry. And wow, I gotta say, my heart was not ready for this last half of the book. I ugly cried so hard. One last quote from the very last page of the book. That is the thing about living in the present, and only the present. It is a run-on sentence. So I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. The second half of the book was the best part. There was some bits in the beginning, as you know, that were hard for me to deal with, but there will be a spoiler-free and also spoiler gush review coming out about the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I will link both of those in the description because they will be out before you see this reading vlog on Saturday. So there's so much I have to say about this book, but look for those reviews to come. And that's it for now. I'm gonna get back to reading some of my other books, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, Kate from LoveStory here, and today I'm checking in on Thursday, January 21st. So my check-in will be about yesterday, the 20th. Happy past Inauguration Day. We finally have a new president. Yay! My reading quote comes from I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is one of the best memoirs by Maya Angelou. If you haven't read it yet, you need to go read it. It is life-changing. This quote I read back in 2016, and it says, "My skin still rippled with the experience of fear." And if you've ever been terrified in your life, completely frightened, you know exactly what this quote is talking about. Now, on to my reading reviews. So, in the Rise of Magick, in chapter 12, we see that they took back DC. They went and infiltrated, took it over, took POWs, captured the man pretending to be the elected president, and we saw so much torture, death, and pain in this chapter. It was really hard to read. And then in chapter 13, poor Joe. We lost Joe. He was now an old dog. He was the puppy back in book 1. Now he's an old dog, and he's essentially died of old age. But that scene where they all said goodbye to Joe was just so sad. I ugly sobbed so much in that. And this is where I say, Leslie, you will not be able to handle this book, because there's now at least 2 pet deaths in this book. And I know how you are when an animal dies, and it's just not good. So that's my warning for Leslie. And that scene was in chapter 13 of this book, and that was even worse than when we had Lupa die earlier, because we knew Joe from a puppy just like we knew Lupa, but Joe was like a member of the family, and it was just so sad. Now on to the Eye of the World. So in chapter 23, we meet Elias, and we learn that he can communicate with wolves, and he thinks that Perrin can also do this. So this is going to be an interesting development. We've got Perrin and Egwene separated from the rest of the crew, and also Moraine and Lan and the other woman from the village, I forget her name. We've got like 3 different groups now going on because they all got separated. So it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses throughout the book and what happens with each one of these groups. And then in A Promised Land by Barack Obama, I'm finally reaching the end of this book, and I'm still loving it so much. I really enjoy this audiobook. Highly recommend it. But the part that I listened to this morning, I loved hearing Obama's honesty about his past views on LGBTQ and also immigrants. Like, he's admitted there were views that I had in the past, there were things that I said in the past that when I look back on it now, it's hurtful and it's wrong. And through time and experience, I've learned that all of these people are just the same as us, and it's wrong to have these prejudiced views of these people. And I just really appreciated his honesty at that moment. He didn't have to tell us about those past thoughts that he's had as a college student and everything, but he did, and he went there in his book, and I just really appreciated that moment. So that's it for now. I'm going to get back to reading, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, checking in on Friday, January 22nd. So yesterday I finished A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I was listening to the audiobook, as you know, and wow, what a fantastic book. It was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. I definitely want to read it again in the physical ebook form, the written form, just so I can pull out some quotes, because when I'm listening to audiobooks, I don't get those quotes like I usually do when I have the words in front of me. But yeah, 5 out of 5 stars, so good. And that last chapter, he ended, so this is book 1 out of, I guess, a series. I don't know how many there's going to be, at least 2, because it says number 1 on Goodreads, and it says, the first volume. So Obama ends the book, the very last chapter is the hunt and assassination of Osama bin Laden. And that chapter was so emotionally filled and passionate, and it was just, it brought tears to my eyes. It's given me tears just thinking about it, if you can see them. It hit me so hard. I remember that day. I remember 9/11 like it was yesterday. It was interesting seeing those moments when Obama had to make those hard decisions and how they came to decide on just how they would get Osama bin Laden. We got to see that behind the scenes look, essentially, and it was so good. That book was so well written. Kudos to Obama, my favorite president. We miss you as president, but I can't wait to see what Joe Biden does. And anyways, 5 out of 5 stars for that. There will be a review coming Wednesday on my review day. So check that out too. It'll be a non-spoiler review because you got all the spoilers here. But I finished that yesterday, so either today or tomorrow, I'll start in on the next audiobook I have lined up, which is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And I can't wait for this book because this is one of those books I've wanted to read forever and just haven't got around to, and I'm finally doing it. And I'm sure this audiobook is just going to be amazing. So check in again on that. And then my last check-in is on The Rise of Magicks by Nora Roberts. I'm making my way slowly through this book. This week was a slow reading week for me. I just couldn't concentrate at all with everything going on. But in chapter 14 of The Rise of Magicks, Phelan tells the crew of her and Malik and Duncan's plan to basically put the POWs that they can trust, the crazy ones, the guy that pretended to be president, they'll all be locked away in jail. But they've realized they've got so many prisoners now that A, they don't have the resources to keep them alive humanely, and B, some of them were forced to fight for the dark side. Their families were held hostage, and they were told if they don't fight, their families were going to die, and they were going to die, and some were indoctrined into this mentality because they were captured as a young kid and that's all they knew. And they also don't want to become like the dark side and, you know, torture and execute people just because of their beliefs. So the real extreme ones, they're going to keep locked away in prison, but the majority of them now, they're going to be putting them on basically deserted islands where they know that they can, you know, grow their own food and hunt for game for food and build their own houses and that kind of stuff. But they also don't have to leave security around them and, you know, give up those troops that they would need in further fights. So I found this strategy to be so interesting and something I have limited experience in fantasy books, especially war fantasy. But this strategy of just putting them on this remote island with, you know, no mode of escape is so interesting to me. I love it. So I can't wait to see how this pans out. In chapter 14, we also met Vivian of Quebec, who is like this mystical, mysterious woman that shows up in New Hope and says that she's got like 1,400 troops ready to fight, and she wants to make an alliance with the One because she knows the One and Phelan, and she would rather fight on the light side than the dark side. And then we learn that she can turn into a red dragon. She does it right in front of Phelan's face, and this is crazy. And then Phelan says, like, I know this is real because I've seen this done before with a black dragon, and she says she saw it twice. And Lena, after Vivian leaves, is like, you told me about the one, but what about the other? And Phelan's like, it was in a dream, and my cousin was riding the dragon. And so now, I started chapter 15 last night, but I haven't finished it. But in the bit that I have started, Phelan and Tonya and Duncan are now off to find this black dragon. So that's where I've left it. And I forgot my webcam at home today, so this is probably going to be the only video until I get back home. But that's it for now, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Checking in today is January 23rd, checking in on yesterday, Friday the 22nd. So yesterday's daily reading quote comes from a short story collection, How to Talk to a Hunter, or Cowboys Are My Weakness, and the short story is How to Talk to a Hunter. And the quote says, it's December, and your skin is never really warm. You will put the bulk of it around you and pose for him, pose for his camera, without having to narrate this moose's death. And that just hit me deep when I read that back in 2014. So anyways, now checking in on a couple of the books. So yesterday I started The Eyes Were Watching God, an audiobook by Zora Neale Hurston. This is a book that was published back in 1937. And it's really, really good so far. I'm really enjoying it. Basically, the synopsis of this book is an American classic. The luminous and haunting novel about Janie Crawford, a Southern black woman in the 1930s whose journey from a free-spirited girl to a woman of independence and substance has inspired writers and readers for close to 70 years. This poetic, graceful love story, rooted in black folk traditions and steeped in mythical realism, celebrates boldly and brilliantly African American culture and heritage, and in a powerful, mesmerizing narrative, it pays quiet tribute to a black woman who, though constricted by the time, still demanded to be heard. And if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. And then the last check-in I have for this week is The Rise of Magicks by Nora Roberts. And so in chapter 16, we see the three of them, Phelan and Tonya and Duncan, go back to Scotland at the MacLeod's farm. And Duncan can see their family sitting around the table and hearing voices, kind of like visions. And we see them kind of just go through the town and meet people and save Girl from being there was a girl that was sacrificed at the circle where the shield was by the dark uncannies, and we just see their journey in Scotland. They take back a picture for Katie, Duncan, and Tonia's mother of her family the year before the doom hit, and it's just a really nice kind of moment there. So then in chapter 17 we see their plan. The New Hope group are planning to attack New York and take it back, and we hear all about how New York has changed since before the doom, and since Lena and the whole gang have lived there. And then they go and recruit people from other towns, and Phelan and Travis go out west to the Midwest and to like Utah to recruit more people to fight for them. And that's where I'm at so far with the Rise of Magicks. I hope to make a big dent in that this weekend and hopefully finish it in a couple days. So that's it for this week. I've finished 2 books this week. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I gave 4.5 stars, and A Promised Land by Barack Obama, which I gave 5 stars. You'll see, I'll link the review for Addie LaRue here, and my review for Promised Land will be coming out next Wednesday, and so be sure to go check that out when it comes out. But that's it for now, and I will check in with y'all again very soon. Bye.